All right, can I start with an easy question?
Okay. And I might,
What happened at the beginning? You were there, they all tell me you were there at the beginning. What happened?
well, I founded it not realizing what I was getting myself into it. Like he said, I was a Watergate kid. Watergate happened in my senior year of high school, and so I wanted nothing better to be an investigative reporter. Worked at ABC News, and I was not traditional journalism material. Ended up working at the National Taxpayer Union, writing a column on government waste, and ended up looking at the C5 wing modification program because a very brave whistleblower, Henry Durham, came to that. That led me to Ernie Fitzgerald. And for anyone who does not know Ernie Fitzgerald is a life force. And he and I just hit it off. We just, he was funny. He had a biting wit that I luckily was very rarely on the other end, but some people who didn't deserve it was on the other end. But Ernie, we worked on the C5 wing modification, which they wanted to modify the wings on the C5 cargo plane because they had taken the weight out of the wings to save money originally. And after that, so I was at the Taxpayers Union, and so I got a congressional hearing, and a lot of the military people and whistleblowers didn't really know how to talk to the press, and I was press. And then I got a congressional hearing, and we got a NBC magazine. So Ernie and others came to me and said, we don't want to be Ernie Fitzgerald. We don't want to go through, by this time he was probably in his 8th year of trying to get his original job back, going to the Supreme Court and everything else. So we came up with the idea of having an underground instead. He said, would you start an organization where you be the front for this information? And I said, well, as long as you have the documents, I'm not going to go, no politics, anything. I still always plan to go back into journalism. I was 25. Well, actually, I was 24, but shortly after, when I started, it was 25. I knew I wasn't going to stay in Washington very long because my husband and I wanted to live in the West Coast. So I thought, I'll just do scorched earth for a couple of years.
Is that a good thing for people to not want to stay in Washington?
Yes. You got to mentally have your bags packed. You got a lot of freedom. That's what Janet Reno used to say to the congressional committees when they go after her. She'd say, I got a nice house in the Everglades. Mentally, my bags are packed. You want me to do this, I'll go home.
Well, take it to 1981, 35 years ago.
So,
they tell me there was a desk and a phone. What else?
Nothing. I got the initial seed money from the National Taxpayers Legal Fund, which Ernie Fitzgerald and Ann Zill were on the board. It was a libertarian organization. We got our seed money to set me up from Charles Koch. People don't know that. Charles Koch was the we should have invited Charles tonight. And we had a very big success right off the bat. And as soon as we got successful, they wanted me to put in libertarian foreign policy, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. They fired Ann and Ernie off the board. They fired us. Ann took it to Stuart Mott from the Fund for Constitutional Government, and they adopted me. And between Ann and Conrad Martin, the project was not its own nonprofit until basically when Danielle took over. So, and it was just military.
Does any one sort of success stand out in your mind from those early years?
Well, the first thing was the M1 tank. And when I started it, I purposely picked a Army thing to look at because I didn't want them to say, oh, this is Ernie Fitzgerald giving it to that little girl. No. So I ended up calling up Andrew Coburn because I knew there was a testing report out there that was bad. And Andrew Coburn says, well, you have to call this guy, but you've got to be he's still really underground. His name's Pierre Spray. And so as soon as I met Pierre, it was another, made in heaven relationship. We just had such a great time. But what happened was that Pierre Spray and John Boyd were always working on the less bang. Weapons don't work, there's this, that. And Ernie Fitzgerald was always doing the more bucks. And so I saw an opportunity here of saying, every time you say some weapon system's too expensive, the Pentagon says, well, you have to have the best for our boys. And every time they would try to do the weapon doesn't work, oh, well, we spent too much money. So we put this two group together, this more bucks, less bang. we started we've been dubbed the Pentagon Underground. And what it was is this was not whistleblowing. I need to make it really clear that nobody wanted to be a whistleblower in the Pentagon. So what happened is I knew about 10 people, and they knew a bunch of people. And the great thing about the Pentagon is they want to staff and channel everything, okay? So it turns out that I was the top of this giant pyramid of people leaking stuff upward. It had to be standalone. It had to be standalone because I didn't want, to have a whistleblower. And I only knew about 10 people. And then people would say, well, I got this from don't tell me, don't tell me, don't tell me, And we never took classified information, which is vague. But the Pentagon, we did the M1 tank. And it got 3 major news articles in 1 week. And then they, imagine a 25-year-old girl, and I looked a lot younger than 25 at that time because I didn't wear makeup and stuff. I was on the Today Show telling the generals their tanks doesn't work, So it was a shock thing. But the Pentagon exploded with documents. It was being in the right place at the right time. Ernie was always fantastic at teaching me all the should cost and weapons pricing, and Pierre and John Boyd, another life force, John Boyd, were working on the weapons. And so I did it for about 10 years. 2 things I did that were very important in POGO is, one, Danielle Bryan came to me as an intern because my brother-in-law was a professor at Smith. And when I took her to the airport after a summer, I said, Danielle, what do you want to do? You're so smart. You're so great. By that time, we had already become friends. And she says, I want your job. And I knew I was not going to stay. And I said, great, come work for me, and you can take it over. and then the other thing I did the last 6 months, and that was to hire Keith Rutter. And that was probably, poor Keith came in, and I do not like to file. I don't like to fundraise. I don't like to do that. All I wanted to investigate. And he brought it in. So I started this renegade organization, but Keith and Danielle made it grow up.
Well, that's fabulous. That's just fabulous. Thank you so much. Can I have one final question? Tell us in 25 words or less, how do you translate, given all the experience you have at this, thoughts and concerns into action? How do you do it?
Well, you have to be willing to be Sisyphus in the rock, or you give up the day before. I think one of the things I said was to myself, and people ask me whether they were underground people or whistleblowers, I got to say, I get to work with the best people in Washington. These are the people who just, against all odds, say, I won't go along with the gag. I won't do that. And they paid big prices, and I really wanted to maybe protect them. 2 lasting things I would like to mention that we're using today that we passed in the 1980s is, one, we got an independent, and because of Pierre suggesting I write an article and then we lobbied the hell out of it, we have an independent testing office in the Department of Defense. And they have been trying to kill that thing for years. But now it looks like we might even have a fly-off between the A-10 and the F-35. That office is still there for Pierre to go to. The second thing was the Qui-Tam False Claims Act law. In 1986, Ernie Fitzgerald and Ernie went to Chuck Grassley and said, how'd you like to put the Abraham Lincoln ball back like Abraham Lincoln had it? And Grassley was hooked. And so we put it back so it became the strongest whistleblower laws you could have, but also returning money to the government. And that's what I did, along with writing books. I always got stuck writing books on defense. Not that I don't like it, but the guy have a life. I do Medicare now and other things. That I was able to do that. I'm still doing it actually for the other 25 years, and I made at least several, if not more, whistleblowers millionaires. And that has a real effect on the bureaucracy, because now they sit in there in a company and they're saying, oh my God, is this CFO going to walk out with the books and make himself a millionaire? This is a lot of thing. But I've worked on all kinds of cases, including defense, and have returned about $200 million to the federal government. So those are the 2 things that really, oh no, it's like 1 week of toilet paper in the Pentagon. Don't be excited. Sorry, but it's just not much. But it was a way to make lawyers pay attention to whistleblowers. And it really, the Quitam law has returned billions. And
So can we thank Dina for her service and for her thing? Thank you so much.